Hey, you guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Steven, accompanied by Queen Taylor. And do you remember when we were doing a bunch of like sports stuff?
Feels like ages ago.
It does feel like ages ago. And we've always meant to get into rugby. Luckily for us, someone had sent us some rugby merchandise and it was super cool. So we got delivered these St. Helen Football Club jerseys. Saint Helens.
Go Saints.
And I had no idea who this was for. I had no idea. I don't think we still know who sent it to us.
Yeah, we found out.
We did.
It was a surprise, though. Usually when people send us a box, they tell us, hey, I sent you something. It's on the way. And we just had this in there.
Yeah.
And it actually took some digging to figure out who sent it. It was a whole surprise. And look how good these colors look on us.
These look great.
So this is our rugby team.
Yeah, St. Helens is now our team.
I do know that they've got a big rivalry with the Wigan Warriors. I think they are.
Very cool.
They're kind of close to each other locally.
Because we were sent these jerseys, I felt like it's time. We need to get off our butts and react to this video. It's been requested a billion times ever since we did the normal football explained for American football fans, and
AFL.
And AFL. We've dabbled. Okay, we've dabbled, you guys.
This has been a long time coming.
So it's time. We're here. And let me tell you, the title of this video, Rugby Explained for American Football Fans. You guys, there was a time in my life where I was a bartender and I had to get into American football just to get more tips and talk about it because I was kind of in a sports bar kind of environment. And it was right after Peyton Manning had retired. So after he retired, I stopped watching American football for forever, but I feel like I know a bit about American football and I know zero about rugby.
I know zero about both, so this is going to be real fun.
Yeah, this is going to be great, and I like the title because I feel like there's going to be a lot of mental blocks in my brain about the way American egg ball is played compared to rugby. But you guys, let's hop on over the video for this much anticipated video. Let's go.
Be explained for American football fans.
All right. To get things started, I want you to picture one of those wild plays at the end of some football games when there's no time left on the clock and the team with the ball needs to score a touchdown. So it's basically a mad scramble with a bunch of laterals and backward tosses with the hope that by doing this, they will eventually be able to break through the defense and score. You're watching some now, so it shouldn't be too hard to picture this. Now, imagine a game where every play is like this. So in our imaginary game, every play is this type of desperate, mad scramble. In this game, there are no forward passes. And in fact, a player on offense is not even allowed to fumble the ball forward or knock it forward accidentally.
What?
Hold on. Did he just say what I thought he said? There are no forward passes?
Yeah, that's what he said. He also said you can't accidentally fumble the ball.
So how do you...
All I do is fumble. I can't play.
How do you get the freaking ball down the field if you can't forward pass it?
You pass it every other direction.
So you have to forward. So when you have possession of the ball, you could run with it. But if you have to like get it out of your hands to another player, it's got to be a sideways pass or a behind pass. Okay. Rugby, you guys. Let's do it.
A player on offense is not even allowed to fumble the ball forward or not.
Hold on, let's back it up. 10. Back it up 10.
Every play is this type of desperate, mad scramble. In this game, there are no forward passes. And in fact, a player on offense is not even allowed to fumble the ball forward or knock it forward accidentally. In this game that we're imagining, play doesn't stop when a player is tackled. The player just gets the ball to a teammate and the scramble continues. In this game, in order to score a touchdown, you actually have to touch the ball down on the ground in the end zone. And finally, imagine that no one in this game is wearing helmets or pads or anything like that. If you can visualize what this imaginary game might be like, you are well on your way to understanding rugby. In fact, rugby and American football more or less descend from the same game, which explains their many similarities. We'll get to the history of all of this later in the video.
Quick disclaimer.
Before we go any further, I just want to say one thing. The purpose of this video is to explain rugby for an American football fan. As was the case with my Cricket Explained for Baseball Fans video, which I highly recommend, this video is intended as a basic starting point, and it comes from my perspective as an American-born sports fan. This being said, if you think I've left something out that's critical for a person to know if they want to understand rugby, or if you think that something needs to be better clarified, or if you think I've made an error, feel free to leave a comment. The comment sections under my videos have been overwhelmingly positive and helpful, and I ask that you keep it that way.
The 2 codes of rugby.
Now, if you want to understand rugby, the first thing to know is that there are actually 2 distinct versions or codes of rugby. And these games are different enough from one another that they are usually considered to be 2 distinct sports. The older and more widely played version or code of rugby is officially called rugby union. And rugby union will be blue for the purposes of this video. The slightly, but only slightly, newer code is called Rugby League officially, and this is the dominant version of rugby in Australia, especially on the East Coast, in Northern England, and in certain Pacific Island nations, including Papua New Guinea, where it's the national sport. Rugby League will be yellow for this video. Each of these games generally goes by the simple name rugby when it's being played, and sometimes they use the even more generic term football. So it's important to know which version of rugby you're watching, because again, they are different enough from one another that they are essentially different sports. Now, in the United
It's interesting that they consider rugby football as well. So like if you're throwing out that term in reference to rugby, you know, other than what we would consider soccer, like I could see where that would get really confusing. So you guys, I think it's fair enough to say that this is a part of the St. Helens is a part of the rugby union. Yeah. I'm looking at the jersey to see if it says that anywhere.
I think they're one of the
I got a super league
better teams.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Are they teams or clubs?
Clubs, I would say, right? Because it's got FC. What was it? Yeah, RFC, Rugby Football Club.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, they are different enough from one another that they are essentially different sports. Now, in the United States, the predominant form of rugby is rugby union. And this is the game that most people are referring to when they just say rugby. And again, this is also the case internationally for the most part. Rugby league is much less common in the United States. In fact, Wikipedia says that there are only about 700 registered players in the US. However, international rugby league matches are shown regularly in the US by at least one cable network, Fox Soccer Plus. So for some people in the United States, rugby league might be the only version of rugby that they have available to them on television. Because of this, and because I know this channel has an international following, and also because like you might go to Australia and want to watch rugby and need to know what's going on, we're going to be covering both versions of rugby in this video. We will get to what makes each version of rugby unique later in the video. Let's begin with a general overview that applies to both games.
General overview.
Rugby, in general, is a contact sport played without pads or helmets, contested between 2 teams of either 13 or 15 players, depending on the version of rugby. There are 7-a-side and 9-a-side versions of rugby. These are shorter and faster-paced versions of the game that are often played at festivals. Rugby is played on a field that is 100 meters long and at least 68 meters wide. So that's 109 yards long and at least 74 yards wide. The field has markings at various points, and the markings are different depending on the version of rugby being played. These markings do have some significance within each game, but on the most basic level, the
Hold on. I wish he would have said what that is like the closest equivalent to.
You might still
like an American football field, a basketball court, a football field.
Well, an American football field, it's 100 yards.
Oh, it is?
Yeah. So.
And he said, well, this is what? 109?
109. So.
Okay, so it's close to that.
With 2 goalposts at the end of it, like it looks like that. With American football, it's every 10 yards, and the middle. So it's like 50 yards this way for the opposing team. And so they have like the 5-yard line or 10-yard line. It's like that.
Okay. I didn't know a football field was that size.
So like the rugby league field, you see how it's got like 10, 20. Those are like the yards, I would assume. And if, you know.
markings do have some significance within each game, but on the most basic level, the markings on the field are your best clue as to whether you're watching rugby union or rugby league. Regardless of the version of rugby being played, the center line on the field is called the halfway line, and the goal lines are called the try lines. At each end of the field is an in-goal area, which is what we would call the end zone. The in-goal areas have a set of uprights that are called goals, and the out-of-bounds area is called touch. So where we would say the ball went out of bounds, they would say it went into touch, or that it's in touch. A rugby match begins similarly to an American football game. There is a coin toss to determine who kicks off, and the team that receives the kickoff attempts to move the ball down the field to score, while the team that kicked off tries to stop them. The team with possession of the oval-shaped ball is allowed to move it by running with it, kicking it, or tossing it laterally or backwards. Forward passes are not allowed, and an offensive team is not even permitted to play a ball that has been knocked or fumbled forward, even if the knock or the fumble was unintentional. You are allowed to punt the ball forward. The punt is often used to clear the ball out, similar to the purpose of the punt in American football, but the punt is also used offensively in rugby, which makes it the closest thing to the forward pass in American football. Just like in American football, defenders are allowed to make contact with and tackle the ball carrier. Once the ball carrier has been brought to the ground, the tackling defender is required to release the tackle, and the ball carrier is required to give up the ball, which usually involves getting it to a teammate to continue play. The rules governing exactly what happens after a tackle has been made differ depending on which version of rugby is being played, and this is the biggest difference between the two codes of rugby. So we're going to be looking at this topic of what happens after a tackle in its own section later in the video. All right.
Yeah, because I'm wondering if you get tackled and could it get like intercepted? Because you have to pass off the ball. But obviously the defenders have to release you once you hit the ground, right? So can those same defenders like make a play for the ball to intercept, I guess,
I would imagine
handoff?
so, because he said usually you pass it to your teammate, but I would think that if the opposing team got there, they could take it.
Scoop it up.
I don't know. Yeah.
That's interesting. Rugby, it looks sick. I feel like I want to go watch it, and maybe that's something we could do is have like a little watch party of a rugby game.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
And have you guys in there kind of telling us what's breaking it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's talk about scoring. The objective in rugby is to score points, either by kicking the ball through the uprights, which is called a field goal, or by bringing the ball past the try line and touching it to the ground, which is called a try and is very similar to a touchdown. Just like the touchdown in American football, a try is worth more than a field goal, and after a team has scored a try, they get a free kick at the goalposts, which is called a conversion. A team can also score points via penalty kicks, which are uncontested kicks at the uprights that happen after penalties, similar to foul shots in basketball. The number of points earned by all of these things differs depending on which version of rugby you're watching.
So
after points are scored, the team that got scored on kicks off to the team who just scored. So yeah, they go hard. A rugby player is only allowed to make a play.
That's actually devastating. So it's like, I just got scored on. I'm going to kick you the ball again. Let you score on me again. I got to beat you.
Wait, no.
I'm pretty sure that's what he said.
They get the ball.
No.
Basketball. The number of points earned by all of these things differs depending on which version of rugby you're watching. After points are scored, the team that got scored on kicks off to the team who just scored.
Oh,
so, yeah, it's like the team that got scored on has to kick it back to the team that scored on them.
I mean, I guess that's motivation to score.
What if the other team that scored on you is just like hands down, like blowing you out of the water? You just got to keep doing that. It's like
to be better.
To be better. I'm getting my ass whooped over here. So guys, I don't think he really mentioned it. What's a typical score like? I mean, like at the end of a game, what are the scores typically? Is it like 50 points to 20? Like, how does that look?
I feel like it seems like it would be high because there was like a 5 and a 3 and a 2 and a whatever, like possibilities dependent on all those different things. It seems like it'd be higher.
And I don't know if he touched on how much those points, because he had the graphics up there that said 3 and, the conversion point. But I wasn't sure if kick was like 1 point, 2 points. Like how much are those points, right?
I think it said.
Did it say? Because he didn't say it, and I was listening for it because I wasn't sure if the scores that he was showing up was just like we started at 0 and then you made the score and it's 3 now.
I'm pretty sure he said.
Did he? I might have missed it.
Let's go back.
A team can also score.
See, like 2 points. Is that just the conversion cost is 2 points now?
Points via penalty kicks.
You're confusing
which
me.
are uncontested kicks.
I know, I might be
that happen
confusing
after
myself
penalties,
too.
similar to foul shots in basketball.
Oh,
The
penalty
number of
goal.
points earned by all of these things differ.
Okay. So a try is 5 points. A field goal is 3 points. The conversion is 2 points. The penalty is 3 points in rugby union. And rugby league is just basically minus. Oh, no, there's actually some significance there with the field goals only being 1 point.
It's like a 4-point difference between the two if you would hit at all of these.
Yeah.
So if you had 3, 2, 5, 3, that's 13. And then 2, 2, 4, 1. That's 5-point difference.
First, depending on which version of rugby you're watching. After points are scored, the team that got scored on
4 point.
kicks off to the team who just scored. So yeah, they go hard. A rugby player is only allowed to make a play on the ball or influence the game if they are onside. During play, being onside generally means being behind the ball from your perspective. Being offside itself is not a penalty, but it becomes a penalty when an offside player attempts to make a play on the ball or interferes with the game. There are some more specific rules governing
Did his teammate just try to stop him from making a play?
It looks like it.
Yeah, it did look like it. Let me see. So the defenders in white are offsides because they are ahead of the ball from their perspective. White is going this way. Got it.
Being offside itself is not a penalty, but it becomes a penalty when an offside player attempts to make a play on the ball or interferes with the game. There are some more specific rules governing offside, including for some set pieces, and those are outside of the scope of this video. Let's talk about that ball real quick. The rugby ball is the same length as an American football, but it is a bit wider and has rounded ends. This makes it a lot less aerodynamic, of course, but that doesn't matter because you're not throwing the ball forward in rugby. In rugby, the play rarely stops except for a few specific reasons. These include, number 1, if scoring has happened. Number 2, if the ball is moved forward by an offensive player by any means except for carrying it or kicking it. Number 3, if the ball goes into touch. Number 4, if there's a penalty. And number 5, if there's an injury. Otherwise, play pretty much keeps going. So in this sense, it's a much more kinetic game than American football. When play restarts after being stopped, it is generally restarted via something called a set piece. If you play soccer,
Hold on, I have to pause because I can't stop thinking about this. He said if the ball has been thrown forward, because you can't throw it forward.
Yeah.
And he shows the guy throwing the ball. But it looks like it's, kind of forward, but also like off to the side. So I'm just picturing how closely they have to watch to be like, that wasn't
That was a
completely
forward
to the
progression.
side. Because it's like, that didn't look like it was just full on forward. It was like a little bit forward, but also just
To
as
the
much,
side.
if not more, to the side. Yeah. So that'd be like really difficult.
I feel as though he showed that clip before it and said that that was a forward pass.
Yeah.
But I'm not 100% positive. You guys leave down in the comments. That was like 5 minutes ago.
I'm pretty sure as well. It's a lot to take in.
It is a lot to
Like
take in.
knowing nothing to little about.
And I'm trying to concentrate and pay attention to what he's saying, but also I got all these visuals that
Yeah.
are so new and
And then all the
exciting.
stuff that he pops up to read.
Yeah, it's a lot, dudes.
Yeah,
It's a
we'll
lot.
catch on more the more we watch.
familiar with set pieces. The main set pieces in rugby union are the line out, which looks like this and is how play is restarted when the ball goes into touch, and the
Oh, that's
scrum,
fun.
which looks like this and is how play is restarted after certain minor infractions or when the ball becomes unplayable but stays in bounds. The
That's
scrum
fun.
is intensely physical in rugby union, and there are strict and specific rules governing the scrum. In rugby league, the scrum is the only set piece, so it's how play is restarted anytime it needs to be restarted. But unlike the scrum in rugby union, the rugby league scrum is more of a formation than a physical contest, and the team that is awarded a scrum almost always gets possession of the ball. Compare these rugby league scrums to this
'cause they
rugby
just
union
keep
scrum.
sending
This
it
is
to
another
the
clue as
team.
to which version of rugby you're watching. On screen right now are some basic rugby terms and their American football equivalents. This is for you to use as a reference. Take a screenshot if you want. Beyond all this, the details of the game that you watch will depend on the version of rugby that you're watching. But before we get to all that, I want to do a quick history lesson so you can get a sense of why rugby and American football are as similar as they are.
A bit of history.
The easiest way to start the history portion of this video is by acknowledging that most forms of football played around the world trace their roots back to the football games played in medieval Europe and medieval England in particular. These games belong to a wider category of game that has been played around the world throughout history, in which two groups of people, and it's usually a large number of people, compete with one another to kick, carry, and or toss a ball or other object into some sort of goal or across some sort of line or into some sort of goal area, almost always through violence. This type of game was already known by the name football in England by the 1300s, and the name football appears to have been in wide use by the 1500s. Today, these medieval games are often called mob football to evoke the chaos and anarchy that defined them. And football was often
because they were playing foot, or other towns were, unless I'm getting this mixed up, because I thought that they were playing for like money or like a bag of gold.
I mean, I feel like there was a lot of years where people were very poor. They probably didn't. I mean, I don't know. Where did the bag of gold come from?
Oh, I might be thinking about the Atherstein thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where the two towns would battle it out.
Atherston. Yeah. There was something. Was it gold?
I thought it was like the two towns would fight over gold.
They fought. I can't remember. I can't remember
and
now.
by kings and within various jurisdictions due to the destruction and injury that it brought. By the 1800s, this type of game was being played in a more organized way at schools and sporting clubs throughout the English-speaking world, including the United States and Canada. Up until the mid-1800s, each school or club played by its own rules, and these rules could differ greatly. So when schools played against one another, they had to agree on the rules of each individual match. Eventually, standard forms of football developed, and the first one to catch on widely was a version played at the rugby school in England. This is the game that the modern forms of rugby descend from, and it was the version of football that directly inspired what we now call football in America. McGill University in Montreal was the first North American school to base their rules on rugby rules, which had been brought to Canada by British soldiers. Harvard University's football team then learned this version of football during a series of matches between the two schools in 1874. Rugby-style football soon spread to other universities, including Princeton, Yale, Tufts, Columbia, and the University of Michigan, and quickly became the most popular form of football in the United States. In fact, for the first few decades of American football, the terms rugby and football seem to have been used interchangeably. And when we look at the rule books from the time, we see that early American football resembled rugby much more closely than what we would identify as American football today. And even though American football has evolved into its own distinct sport, there are still some vestiges of its roots as what you could call a variation on rugby football. For example, we still call this a touchdown, even though we are long past the point where a player has to actually touch the ball down on the ground to score as they do in rugby. All right, I hope knowing that bit of history helps put everything into context. Let's go on now and talk about the most significant difference between the two codes of rugby.
The biggest difference between rugby union and league.
As you could tell from the general overview, the two codes of rugby share a lot in common, and the majority of their differences are easily explained. And this makes sense because up until 1895, there was only one code of rugby. The split happened because a group of teams in northern England felt that they were being overlooked by the London-based Rugby Football Union, and also because they wanted to get paid. It seems unthinkable today, but the idea of a full-time professional athlete is actually a relatively new thing. And this topic is interesting enough that it probably deserves its own video. So let me know in the comments if you would be interested in that video. Anyway, so in 1895, that group of teams in Northern England created their own governing organization, which eventually became known as the Rugby Football League. And the two codes of rugby began evolving independently of one another.
Rugby league became popular among the working class in Australia due to players wanting to get paid, which was not allowed by the Southern rugby union at the time. Today, rugby league has a reputation as being the working class version of the game, even though both codes of rugby are now fully professional.
The working class version of the game.
What'd I say?
Nothing. I was repeating it because I think it's funny. You said working class version.
Okay. Because normally when she repeats something I said, I biffed it.
Oh yeah, that's true. But no, not this time. I like the way that it's the
bring
working
that.
class version.
Yeah.
It's like the blue collar.
I like it. How much what's the
Today,
pay
the two
difference?
codes are different enough
today?
from one another that they are generally considered to be two distinct sports. We covered most of the differences between rugby union and rugby league already, but there's one difference that to me is significant enough that I think it deserves its own section of this video, and that is what happens after a ball carrier has been tackled. This fundamental question has a dramatic effect on the strategy, gameplay, and overall flow of the action in rugby. And ultimately, this question defines the distinct personalities of each game. You'll remember from the general overview that a tackled player in rugby is required to give up the ball, and the tackling defender is required to release the tackle. This applies to both rugby codes. What happens next is unique to each game. Let's get into it, and we'll start with rugby league because rugby league operates much more like American football after a tackle. In rugby league, which again is the one that's more popular in Australia and has the field similar to American football, each team can only maintain possession of the ball for 6 tackles. So this is similar to the 4 downs in American football, but you can think of it as 5 downs because they consider the tackle after a punt or a kickoff to be the 0 tackle. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, in rugby league, after the ball carrier has been tackled, the defense is required to clear out at least 10 meters and allow the offense to play the ball uncontested. This is officially called the play the ball. So you can think of rugby league as having a 10-meter neutral zone after each tackle. The exception to this are 2 defenders called the markers who are allowed to be near the ball, but they're not allowed to interfere. So I guess they're there to keep the offense honest. I don't know. Any defensive player besides the markers who has not retreated 10 meters is considered offside. So they have to get onside before they're allowed to affect the game in any way. In rugby league, there are no first downs. So a rugby league offense has to score before its 6th tackle or else it gives up possession. This means that if a team is on its 6th tackle and is not close to scoring, the team will usually just punt the ball away like in American football. The difference, of course, is that the punt is a live ball in any form of rugby. So if a member of the offense catches it, they can try to score or at least push the ball as far as possible on their final tackle.
Oh, that's dirty. So before their final or after their final, tackle, they punt the ball into, I guess, I'll call it, for me, the end zone, but it's not the touch zone. So they'll send it out that way. But if you have a sniper on your team that ran all the way the hell over into the opposing team's goal area and is just waiting, he can stab at it. I think it's really interesting. It does make sense in a down situation for like 6, I guess, tackles.
Yeah.
I think it's rough though when you think about the 2 markers. So someone gets tackled down, the whole freaking team. What if Billy's not paying attention?
I mean, I would hope that if you're a professional player,
I get it,
or even semi-pro, you're paying attention all the time.
They're like, boys, 10 meters, go. Like, oh shit.
As opposed to American football, where score or at least push the ball as far as possible on their final tackle, as opposed to American football, where a team fully gives up possession by punting. If a team does not score and gets tackled a 6th time, they become the defense and have to clear out 10 meters so that their opponents can play the ball uncontested. Real quick, because I know it will come up in the comments, I will say that there are a few ways that a team can get a fresh set of 6 tackles, and those are outside the scope of this video. All right, now we're going to talk about what happens after a tackle in rugby union. In rugby union, the ball is always live and it's always able to be contested. So in rugby union, there's no concept of uncontested possession or downs. And there's no limit to the number of times an offense can be tackled while they have possession of the ball. If the ball carrier is tackled in rugby union and the defender is able to get to the ball before the offense, it's a turnover, which is pretty good on the defender. Because of this possibility, there's almost always a teammate of the ball carrier ready to receive the ball after a tackle. And the defense often doesn't try to contest this handover. But it's also common for the defense and the offense to both engage over the ball after a tackle, which creates a situation called a ruck. vocabulary term and is an official thing in rugby. Once the referee announces a ruck has formed, there are strict rules governing what is allowed to happen to keep things from becoming a violent free-for-all. For example, players are required to remain on their feet during a ruck, and players can only join the ruck from the back from their perspective. The most significant rule, maybe, is that players are not allowed to place their hands inside the ruck, which means that players need to use their feet to bring the ball to the back of the ruck, and or players need to physically push the ruck or engage with the bodies of the opposing team so that a player at the back of the ruck or from outside of the ruck can pick up the ball. Rucks are often resolved quickly, but sometimes they get extended, for lack of a better term. That's all we're going to say about the ruck in this video. There is a link in the description if you want more information. So that's the biggest difference between rugby league and rugby union, at least to my eye. And it's what gives each of these sports their own personality. Because the offense is guaranteed the ball after most tackles, the action in rugby league is more predictable and compartmentalized, and it's easy to make sense of it if you're coming at it from the perspective of an American football fan. Rugby union is more kinetic and is more of a perpetual scramble because the ball is essentially always live, even after a tackle.
Recommendations and final comments.
All right, so now that you've got the basics of rugby in your mind, I recommend following this video up by watching a couple matches. If you'd like to start out with a rugby league match, which might be the better place to start just because it's more similar to American football, I highly recommend the 2015 grand final between the Brisbane Broncos and the North Queensland Cowboys of Australia's National Rugby League, which is basically the Australian Rugby Super Bowl. It's available for free on YouTube. If you'd like to follow up with a rugby union match, since that's the more common version worldwide, and it's generally what people mean by the term rugby outside of the places where rugby league is specifically popular, I might actually point you towards a recent match, the 2022 Women's Rugby World Cup final between England and New Zealand. Both of the matches that I'm recommending are electric and highly competitive and very fun to watch. So they are fun regardless of how much rugby knowledge you are bringing into it. I promise you that by the end of it, you'll have a much better sense of this game. If you have further questions, feel free to leave comments. If this is anything like my Cricket Explained for Baseball Fans video, there will be rugby fans in the comments who will be happy to answer your questions. Again, the comment sections under my videos have been overwhelmingly positive, and I just ask that you keep it that way.
That's awesome.
Heck yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I love that. We've done his football video before. I really like just honestly, what I like the most of doing these kind of reactions is the amount of information that we get in our comments after reacting to it.
It's honestly more helpful, I think, to me, because watching these, it's so much information and so quickly. And like you said, you're listening, but you're watching and then you're reading. It's all these things at once. It's a lot to process. I'm trying to retain what he just said, and he's like 5 sentences ahead, and I'm like,
he's on to the next thing.
Yeah, he is. And I'm like, I just need to understand what you said like 30 seconds ago.
But it is kind of eye-opening. It's kind of interesting, and like it's just, you know, obviously starting from zero, it's kind of learning, you know, through a fire hose. But it's a good starting point, I think. I think it's enough to get someone to at least have a conversation about it, and kind of like, okay, so I know you're talking about this part of the game. You know, it's like, okay, we can have a conversation. You can inform me or teach me. So I think these videos are great, especially for think about the type of person that's looking up this video. It's probably an American who wants to learn more about it. Yeah. Right. So you already have that enthusiasm. You already have that like want to learn mentality.
They yearn to learn. So like, you know, this is like a casual person on YouTube is not going to be looking for this video. It's someone's going to search for this. So I think for those types of people, this is great. I thoroughly enjoy them. I think he covers a lot. He really does. And there's always that mental block. You know, what I really appreciate about rugby in comparison to American football. I've played American football as a kid with the pads and all that stuff. And like we're taught to use our bodies as weapons against, you know, the other players. And
They basically, if you're in offense and defense, there's like a shield wall that bashes into each other, and the defense has to basically break through the shield wall to get to the quarterback. With rugby, every player is at a moment's notice just about to get hit.
Yeah.
And
it's definitely way more chaotic.
yeah. And everybody's in momentum, which in momentum is the key. Like, can you imagine these athletes running at 60 freaking miles an hour?
60.
They're little cheetahs. I don't know if it's fast. It's faster than I can run. But like they're running
really fast.
full speed into another person without pads and then hitting the ground. I think hitting the ground is more painful going at that speed than just getting hit in itself. It's like,
and they don't have the padding and such. And then we saw instances where, somebody was lifted up in the air and then people tackled them from midair. Yeah, I think it's really fun learning about these new sports that are obviously similar in some ways to American sports, but obviously different
it's
as well. It's fun to learn. It's fun to see. Like we've said, it takes sometimes a couple times to really get more into it and to know and understand it a lot better. So as we watch more rugby and as we read the comments to understand things, it'll click a lot easier and be retained a lot more.
And I do think that rugby is more of like a team sport where I feel as though the preparation and execution of plans going into a match means more than just one really good player.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like with football or in America soccer, I feel like maybe they can get away with like 2 studs and the rest of the team is just okay. I feel like with rugby, the whole team has to be like a unit, to make sure because there just seems to be a lot of like positions that require that kind of coordination. And it's fascinating. It's really fascinating to me. I mean, you could have, what do they call them in football? A forward, the person that the striker.
Don't look at me.
That freaking striker could just be like an ace, and win games. But I digress. Now I'm just talking out my ass. But you guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the shirts that we received.
Mine is in the right position. I can just hold it up a little easier.
Yeah. Thank you. I can't wait. See, the reason why we're not wearing these, because I felt like we didn't earn it. We haven't earned the right to wear these jerseys. Okay. But now
we're lucky enough to be touching them.
We're lucky enough to be touching them and to hold. I was thinking, maybe we just put them up in like those frames and put them on the wall.
A shadow box, the t-shirt shadow box.
But I wanna learn. I want to get into St. Helens. What if St. Helens is like a beast? What if we're wearing like a beast? I need to know. I don't want to be rooting for a crappy team. I want to be rooting for the best team.
They're a really good team.
Yeah. So you guys, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the jerseys. And we'll see you in the next sports video. Bye.